service of the NTA.
On March 22, 1980, 100,000 spectators crammed like sardines into a sports facility constructed in 1972 to hold 60,000. That was the night the Eagles soared to the first Africa Cup of Nations victory in Lagos. Between 1972 and 2000, the last time the venue was used officially to host any major international event, the National Stadium in Surulere, Lagos, was the capital of sports and sports development in Nigeria. It was easily one of the best and most complete sports facilities in Africa, home ground to some of Nigeria's greatest sports heroes, including Rashidi Yekini, who died 5 years ago today, Peter Fregene, who will turn 70 on Saturday, and many others in other sports, living and dead. Since the capital of Nigeria was moved to Abuja, the National Stadium in Lagos started to dwindle in relevance and functionality as a hub for sports engagement in Nigeria. Today, only a carcass of that monument remains to remind all Nigerians of the monumental shame we are bequeathing to this generation. Those familiar with the sports industry see the enormous potentials of this complex in this sports-starved environment of 80 million people. How did we get to this sorry state? What can now be done to change the fortune of the National Stadium? What should the federal government, the owner of the complex, do? What are the various opinions on the recent concession arrangement by the Lagos State government? I am SEGUN ODEGBAMI, the Speaker of the Sports Parliament. Your regular diet of television and sports, coming to you from Africa's largest viewers all over Nigeria and abroad can join us on any one of our social media platforms. On Facebook, it is Sports Parliament. On YouTube, it is youtube.com/NTA2 Lagos. On Twitter, it is at NTA Sports Parlia. NTA Sports Parlia. Okay? We sent out our reporters this morning to do a 60-second tour of parts of the National Stadium. We shall be going on a short break, but before then, I would invite you to sit back, relax, and shed your own tears for what has become of the National Stadium. And again, before then, with me on today's show, maintaining his outside right position, Godwin Dudu Orume.
Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Sitting to my right, a natural inside forward, who scored so many goals for the Green Eagles and Shooting Stars, Shola Akinwale.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker.
And to my distant left, replacing Adoke Ahmed, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice. This one of 27 Nigerians in our entire history who dangled around his neck an Olympic gold medal, Eme Udo Obong.
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to be back.
And to my left, one who pretends to be a great footballer. He was a player in those days as a student, but a great marketer he is, Kule Raji.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker.
And in our studios in Abuja, a parliamentarian that is appearing for the first time on our show, Tanko Abdullahi Yunusa.
Honorable Speaker, to be on this program. I have watched this program in the past couple of weeks, and I'm really excited to be here, Uncle Shege, and my friend Raji, and all the other parliamentarians. My greatest pleasure. Yes, my greatest pleasure.
So, I invite you once again to please shed your own tears. After that, we're going to go on a short break, and then we'll come back to take on the issues. Welcome back. Well, we didn't quite shed enough tears there because it appears a few things are being done, particularly to the swimming pool. But let us start on a good note. Let us just go back in time and recall memories individually of how the National Stadium was and what it holds for us. Let me start from, I think we should go to Abuja to enjoy Tanko Yunusa. Tanko, what are your earliest memories of the National Stadium?
Quite a lot. I watch Benden Insurance against Rangers International FA Cup final at the National Stadium in Lagos. I've watched also several Eagles matches at the National Stadium. In fact, when Sam Okwaraji died, I was at the stadium. So the National Stadium was one of those Nigerian monuments, especially when you're a footballer or a football fan, that you want to be at the National Stadium. If there is a match at the National Stadium, you leave home as early as 6 a.m. with your food, and then you get into the stadium, enjoy the ambience, and unfortunately, that is all gone now, and it's so sad, but you know, it's something that is difficult for you to sit down here to really recall all those sweet memories, watching football on a field capacity stadium with the, you know, with the grass so lush that you feel you can just lie on it. But unfortunately, we don't have all that. But I think this program is an opportunity for some of us to, you know, say what we think could be done, you know, to revive not only the National Stadium. If you go to the Abuja Stadium now, it's almost barren, no activity. The Liberty Stadium in Ibadan, the Ahmadu Bello Stadium in Kaduna, or the Nnamdi Azikiwe Stadium in Enugu. All the stadiums are just there. They've not been, you know, fully utilized. So, but the National Stadium is really in a terrible shape, and I think as the program goes by, definitely I think the speaker is going to touch on some of those issues on why exactly we're on this program this night.
Tanko, well, a different sport, a different perspective, our Olympian. What are your own best memories?
Well, obviously, my best memories were running the Nigerian national trials at the National Stadium. And ever since we migrated from the National Stadium to now any other stadium, it's been it's degraded from a national trials to from more or less a glorified school sports competition that we now have. I was opportune to be the last 400 meters winner in the national stadium when we did our national trials there, and the atmosphere is just different. We had a lot of pride and a lot of a lot of passion doing sports in the national stadium. But now I think our sport has become so, there's federal character in sports. So when you host it here, this year, you carry it to another place, you carry it to another. There's no feeling of any home ground, any home advantage that we should have. So it's a sad thing. My biggest memories are the national trials in those days, and now we really don't have any kind of thing like that in athletics.
Cool. Well,
there are lots to point to, but I'll pick Bendel Insurance as ICC. Park Stadium. People are in the stadium.
We destroyed them on that day, have we? We destroyed Bendel.
You can mention a lot of games, okay, that one I've seen at the National Stadium, with nostalgia. I also remember the Taribo and Friends, which I organized, which was beyond imagination in terms of the crowd. People were sitting even on the tracks. And you look at National Stadium today and you weep, because it was the mecca of sports. I call it the best property in the center of Lagos in terms of the facilities, the space and what you have in there. But we are letting it go to rust. Maybe past governments have neglected sports, not knowing the power of sports and what that can generate. I know some statistics are saying even when the Super Eagles are playing, armed robbery is even down because everybody is watching the game. And football or sports is the most unifier of people in this country. We are neglecting that. And not having the national stadium being in prime position to organize events that make people happy, bring people together, is quite sad. Very sad.
Omodudu.
For me, the National Stadium holds many fantastic memories. I saw the first goal scored in National Stadium by stationary stores forward who was playing for Nigeria at the time. Mamadou Yakubu Mambo was a great right winger. I also saw, I was in 1972 against Mali. And then the All African Games, I saw very many of the matches wherever the captain of the Eagles came out of the tunnel, Victor Oduma, up to Wenchuku, ODEGBAMI, Stephen Keshi, when they come out of that tunnel, the thunderous ovation that greets them. You don't find any of these backyard stadiums that they take Super Eagles matches to anymore. That's another matter. And I also had the privilege of watching the All African Games proper, where world-class athletes, Ben Jipcho, Kipchoge Keino, Orene Karikari, George Daniels, our own Kolawole Abdullahi, and Emilia Edet, they were a magical group that came. It was a festival. And the closest we've come to that is in some of the early parts of the mobile athletics. And then, of course, I was also there when Bendel Insurance retired with Jeopardy, when Eagles beat them, when Bendel Insurance beats the Shooting Stars, including my own big Bobby.
So when they beat Rangers also.
And of course, they also beat
they beat Rangers, they beat Shooting Stars, and then they beat Rangers. Yes, don't say Shooting Stars.
I was also there when goals I've seen in football scored by SEGUN against Algeria gave Nigeria the Cup of Nations. All of that went on and on. There were so many great games until a group of Eagles who, combined age of one of them gets to about 200 years. They started playing slow motion football in the stadium, and Lagos fans, not particularly patient with irresponsible football, started screaming at them. And then the NFA at the time just buckled and took Super Eagles matches away from the stadium, the National Stadium. That's when the decay started. That's when most of the activities started going down. They now turn into a place where people come and sell pepper soup and all kinds of things. You see people who say they are jogging in the morning. When they finish, they consume cartons of alcohol. I mean, the place is no longer. It just needs to be upgraded, repackaged to be able to deliver that thing that the national stadium of a country should be. Like Wembley is quite capable of doing as well. That's my position.
Shola, ex-international.
Well, the fond memories I have about the National Stadium, as a young boy growing up in the north, we watch events on television. And my first experience of having a practical touch of the National Stadium was in 1984, 83-84, when Kano State qualified to play in the Manuwa Adebayo Cup final in Lagos. And it was like, you know, you coming to Maracana of those days. When we were in Kano, we were playing football as a young boy, want to play in Maracana. The only stadium we knew then was Maracana. You want to go to Wembley and Maracana. And we were watching matches, the 1980 Nations Cup at the National Stadium. We saw the way spectators filled the stadium. We saw colorful things, you know, from the television. And now having the opportunity to now play on that same pitch was something great for us. And then shortly after we played the final, there was the first Kodak World Cup. You know, Nigeria was going to take part in that World Cup. We formed the basic of that team with James Peters, with our team, the academicals team, before James Peters got the job of BCC Lions and Sabara took over. So we were there, we were feeling what we were seeing on television. We were having a practical feel of it, and it was fantastic.
Well, we would dash over to Tanku Yunusa again. You mentioned, whilst you were speaking, about the state of Abuja Stadium. I thought that the movement of the federal capital from Lagos to Abuja started all of this, because it now necessitated that a new national stadium be built in Abuja, which was done. But if you look at Abuja, as you said, you look at Enugu that the federal government took over, look at Ibadan that they took over, look at Kaduna, they are all in similar states of decay. Give me your perspective on what happened to all of them. Is it that we have this culture of neglect, no maintenance, or no understanding even of what sports development really is, particularly as related to sports facilities?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think one of the greatest challenges you face is the fact that national stadiums all over the world, not only in Nigeria, are not supposed to be revenue-generating infrastructures, because most of the national stadiums host maybe between 8 and 10 matches every year. And most of the time, after those games, nothing happened at the stadium. So there are no activities, and because you don't have activities, the stadiums generally, you know, are allowed to just decay. So I think first that is a major problem, because any facility you don't use, usually what you have, it is left to just rot. So the National Stadium in Lagos belong to that class, because even in Abuja, the stadium is not being used. And we know the circumstances that led to the building of the Abuja Stadium. So much money, so much land, nothing was done, in terms of what do we do with the stadium immediately after the games, why it was constructed. Nobody thought of that. So the moment the stadium is built, and Abuja literally was not like a Lagos, it was almost like a civil service state. Most of the inhabitants of Abuja live outside Abuja. They don't live inside Abuja. So the likelihood of the stadium is not going to be used was there from the outset. But no one thought about that. If you go to Kaduna, there are some level of activities at the Kaduna Stadium, and you don't have the type of decay you have in Lagos. I think one of the problems that affected the National Stadium in Lagos is the Teslim Balogun Stadium that was built almost beside the National Stadium. I think that was a very wrong political move by the guys who took that decision at that time, because it literally took away, the shine of the National Stadium. The National Stadium virtually was not used. Nobody was using it. Teslim Balogun Stadium became the darling of Lagos State, because the National Stadium was used by the national team, and then the national team is not using the stadium. So how do you expect the National Stadium, to have any, importance? So generally, the movement, yes, must have contributed, but even before then, like Dudu said, most of the facilities and the stadium is not even being used before then, except maybe for boxing, basketball. Even the swimming pool was bad. Lawn tennis was also being used then. But after that, the stadium itself, the main bowl, was completely disused. So the movement, yes, part of the problem, but Teslim Balogun Stadium just being by the side of the National Stadium was a problem. Thirdly, which is most critical, is the fact that government did not invest, at the stadiums, because after building them, it was like, fine, we've built the stadium and there you go. And the administrators that have run, our sports, in the last 20, 25 years have not done anything, to make sure that, fine, what do we do with the national stadiums? Instead of handing them just over to the states, if you hand them, okay, you hand Kaduna State the Ahmadu Bello Stadium, what do you want them to do? They don't even have a team, So likewise, Ibadan, ICC is not doing too well. How many people are going to the stadium? Where are the resources to maintain these big edifices? So I think it's a very big problem that you cannot really isolate. So there are pockets of problem all over the place, but I think going further, the debate today is about concession, and I think maybe that is the way we should go with our national stadiums.
Thank you very much, Tanko. We'll be going on a short break. When we come back, we'll now start looking at the solution. What do we really do? And maybe isolate the federal government in terms of what the federal government itself should be doing as its statutory role in sports development in the area of sports facilities.
I've waited so long for this game.
There's a problem with this camera.
What's happening? No. We are not missing the match. You ain't going. Hello, hey.
Nice. On a try.
Oh.
Hold on, guys. Glow can actually borrow me data. So let's get back to what's in there.
I told you.
Borrow me data from Glow. Dial *321#, even if your account balance is 0.
The largest data network, Glow, grandmasters of data.
Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make it go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, oh get roll. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is the Sports Parliament coming to you from our NTA studios in Abuja and Lagos. Well, every Tuesday, you can also watch this program every Tuesday morning from 11 to 12 o'clock. So the Parliament is in session. All our parliamentarians can now express their individual views on the subject matter and start to direct us towards solutions. I will start from outside right. That's the winning position.
Yeah, for me, circumstances appear peculiar because what you see in the National Stadium is what you see in NITEL, is what you see in NEPA. It just means that government doesn't have enough of the competencies to manage these things. Government does not appear focused or ready to deal with this, but we've invested money in it. Rather than let it go to decay completely, we must fashion out a modus of ensuring the continued use in good state of repairs, and then of course upgrading it to becoming a 21st century football or stadium facility where you have at least 5 destinations. A family can go to the stadium, they may not all arrive at the same spot. I might just go straight through the sports bar and onto my seat that I've paid for. My wife will go to the salon in the place. The children will find some spot, and the bigger boys in the house will go to the sports shop and go to the snooker room. That's what modern stadium facilities are, not what we call stadium today. So the National Stadium is in dire need of upgrading, not renovation, like painting the place like the one with the swimming pool. That's not good enough. We need to have the place rise up to a standard, and people will pay for the use, commercialize it, and the only way to do this is by way of concession. If we do approach it by way of concession, the down hours will be low. You have anchor tenants, they pay for the use of the place and create activities. I mean, tennis, they will create tournaments, generally employ facility managers or engage facility managers who will give us return on investment based on the activities they have. When the national team is coming to play there, NFF pays some money. Anybody's coming there, we're not going to adopt the Wembley Stadium because this was clear-sighted about budgetary allocations which are actually delivered and used there. Not this one where some of it gets stuck somewhere. We need to have a special approach, a regimen that ensures that these monuments, the National Stadium Sule, the Liberty Stadium, the Ahmadu Bello Stadium, they all come back to what they should be and deliver a little more, especially because of the passion that sports drives. There's so much that can happen, but today the main goal of the National Stadium is just fit enough for horses.
Who was
Mr. Speaker, I think our problem stems from the attitude of people towards government property. Government property, they say, is nobody's property. So, and that affects the maintenance culture we have on government property. Now that everything is turning to privatization and concession, if you look at other spheres of our economy, you look at the telecom, you look at power, there is deliberate effort at privatization. Why is it not coming into sports? And that is the neglect, the attitude of government towards sports. The way government is handling sports in this country also affects the facilities. Now, it has been proven that government cannot maintain facilities like the National Stadium. Why don't you give it, concession it to private hands and let them turn it to something that will be useful to people? Not the National Stadium or any stadium, it shouldn't be for sports alone. There are so many other things that can take place within the ambience of the stadium. And this can only be done when you give it to private hands that have the concept of what to make of the facility. the National Stadium has large expanse of land apart from the main bowl, where five-star hotels can be built, where housing estates can be built, where big shopping mall, you know, can be built. So a lot of activities will go on there. Once you walk in there, you either go there for sports, you go there for accommodation, hospitality, or you go there to do what, or shop. So it keeps the place busy all the time.
Well, before we go to you, just so you think about it. Okay, maybe Kule will think about it whilst you are answering. Because several years ago, Kule and I were in Singapore for a football conference. And they told us that we should use the Amsterdam Arena as a good example. That the least activity that goes on in a sports complex is actually the sport. That what sustains the sports complex are all other activities. And the least is that of sport. And the issue of concession has been on for so many years. AKG started it. So what is the problem with concession? Anyway,
well, that's actually the direction I was coming to talk about. Because first of all, I must disagree with Tanko and Ayuba, my friend, for...
Tanko, you sir.
I said in Abuja. For two issues. One is that he says that they're not built for revenue generating. And secondly, he referred to the fact that the testing Balogo Stadium is actually hindered the development, the maintenance of the National Stadium. I think I disagree with those two things. And we must know that when we talk about the National Stadium, like Dudo and Shola had said, the main bowl is just one part. And I agree that the main bowl shouldn't even have activities all the time. In fact, it shouldn't even have any activity apart from probably top international competitions, and maybe once in a while, for revenue generating, you host a concert. I mean, the Emirates in London they have 4 concerts a year. It's for revenue generation, and we must have something like that. But the most important thing we get going to the stadium, like you just said, and that's what I wanted to emphasize, is not the sports, it's the experience, and it's the experience we are lacking in Nigeria, and that's why our sport does not grow, because people feel that, oh, I'm not interested in going to watch Shooting Stars versus this, so I can as well stay at home. Or some people decide that if there's an important match, so because of the traffic, let me stay and watch at home on TV. But if you have gone to big mega events like the Olympics, like the World Cup, you will notice that the experience you get, the experience generated in going to the stadium is different from staying at home. So when we create that experience, when we create that, there's something for everyone. Do emphasize, you can have a shopping mall, a hotel is an excellent thing. There's something for everyone in the stadium. And once you can generate that experience, people will go to the stadium even if they don't know who's playing. You will hear ladies say that, I like that guy playing there, he has fine legs. They don't know the sports, but the experience brings them there, the atmosphere, the fun, and everything. And that generates not only interest, generates activity, and makes people come to the stadium. So in the whole, I don't think that, I actually think that Teslin Balogo being close to the National Stadium could have helped the National Stadium in terms of the amount of activities that go on the National Stadium to maintain. The Teslin could have taken care of some other smaller activities. We don't have to be hosting primary school sports day inside our main bowl. You don't do that. That's supposed to be a temple of sports. I mean, in better climes, if we are moving National Stadium from Lagos to Abuja, we would have cut the grass and auctioned it, that this is the stadium that won the Nations Cup, and we give it as key rings. I mean, some football clubs are doing that. So we don't appreciate those things. And where we don't have a stadium like that does not have a functioning practice pitch where other activities can take place, you look around, there's an expanse of land, lots of things can be done in the stadium. And all that we have now is people, a nightclub or 2 nightclubs, or wine drinking, and some people saying sports for all coming on Saturdays. It's horrible to watch. When I go to that stadium on Saturday, I weep because I know how that stadium was 15, 20 years ago. And I go there now, you can't see an athlete there. You can't see someone that you can prospect there. What you can see is it's someone that probably has experience in pepper soup selling or something. That's what you see in the National Stadium, and that's sad.
Well, I'd like to digress a bit. I think the fundamental problem we have was that thought was not given to principal tenants for the stadium we built. All stadia around the world are built with a principal tenant in view or in place already. And with that, you have a consistency of activities to start with. Everything else is built around that. That is missing in Nigeria, and even if we go for the concession and we don't have principal tenants. And when I say principal tenants, I mean a major football team, for instance, that uses the national stadium as its home base. When you go to San Siro in Italy, Inter Milan and AC Milan uses the same San Siro stadium. Okay, they are the drivers of people that comes to the stadium. Okay, South Africa just hosted a World Cup. The city of Johannesburg has 4 big stadiums. Orlando FMB Stadium, I think Round Stadium, and one other one within the city. It is owned by the city. But then they appointed, I think, Stadium Management South Africa to manage it. It's a group, independent group. They gave it away, no fees, no concession, not even matter of paying fees, to get the stadium. But then they are to operate and manage it and seek the funds to develop the stadium. They are doing that successfully. And you know what? They have principal tenants. The big games, Orlando Pirates and
Chiefs.
And the Chiefs, okay, they have their games fixed in that stadium. So you can guarantee an 85,000 capacity stadium
audience.
So those are the things that we can start with. We are talking about concession. Okay, you concession. Lagos State is one major city around the world that I've seen without a major football team or a major sports team. That is a missing link. If Lagos State government should even get this, they have to start thinking of facilitating a Lagos United or a kind of something of that magnitude, to be able to drive this, because out of 365 days, if you don't use the stadium for 200 days, then you don't have a stadium. It's as simple as that. And we have to get serious about it. I don't have a problem with the government owning a stadium or whatever. It is what they do with it. So if those things are not in place, there is trouble. And we should be careful about that. And that should be part of the concession arrangements that can be worked out.
Well, I just want to point this out. There's a stadium in Nigeria. It is called the Adamasingba Stadium in Ibadan. When it comes to stadium matters, Ibadan has the richest history, and it is the most sophisticated in terms of, stadium management, groundsmanship, and all of that. They inherited that from the government of Awolowo. And Liberty Stadium, even in the early 60s, was comparable to any stadium in the world. Any stadium in the world. The pitch in the 60s is as good as the Barcelona pitch of today. The pitch in the 60s in Liberty, that's where the world boxing fight between Dick Tiger and Jim Fuma was fought. Anyway, I'm just saying that Ibadan, or your state now, is a sophisticated environment. So if you go to Adamasingba Stadium, which they had to build when the federal government took over Liberty Stadium, which was being well run by the Western State government at the time, Adamasingba today funds the Oyo State Sports Council through the revenue they generate from activities around that stadium. And it is because it's a cultured sports environment. They know it, they know the formula. It worked in those days, and it is still working to an extent in Ibadan. I'm just saying, just to point out to you that sometimes government can even run something. They gave the Sports Council independence. They pay their salaries from the revenue they generate. They maintain the stadium, and all the government does is just a token. Please, let's continue with the conversation.
I just want, because that is exactly what Femi is saying, and that's what I agree with. It's more of management than concession. Because if you give our stadium or the national stadium to a management company and tell them, fix the dates, God so kind, we have fixed dates for maybe the Super Eagles, so fix the date. The Super Eagles play on A, B, C, D, these 5 dates of the year for the Super Eagles. run it, keep those days free, and that's the Super Eagles, that's the home turf they play. Our under 17, 21 can go anywhere, Kano or any government that wants to host them, but the Super Eagles should have a home state, a home stadium, and that's where we should go. It's a more of management. I believe more management, a private or public or anyway, competent management than concession. I think concession is just for businessmen trying to, when you concession, you might lose the essence of sport because they can generate anything they want to do.
things differently.
Okay. Well, you see, listening to Eddie, yes, I see some sense in it and follow what Kule has said. But we are in a peculiar situation where this thing has deteriorated completely. The South African experience where immediately after the World Cup, like Kule said, there was something came behind it. What I'm going to do with these facilities thereafter. So something is on ground. But today, even if the federal government approves 10 billion for it, it's not going to get there. They're not going to do it. So let's deal with the peculiar ulcer that we have. Let's look at concession. We have open public bidding. If Lagos State government wins it, fine. If Lagos wins it, fine. And it does mean that, or presupposes the fact that certain criteria would have been laid down, which you must meet. Open bid, and whoever gets it, it starts to deliver. It's like, it's a sad way the Liberty Stadium went that Afuse went to. Afuse was sheer magic. It was magical to go there and come back. But the federal government took it over, and it's a forest today. We are speaking to, incidentally, I come from Edo State. We're talking to our governor that please, let's bring back Afuse and create a whole new experience. Because, the old Midwest or Bendel team went to Afuse to camp. When they're coming to, again, look at this. I think the first 18 national sports festivals were held in the National Stadium. And for a lot of Nigerians, it was the first time there. Memories they would never live down. And the old Midwest, the female contingent had female drivers. They came to this place. But when the federal government took over Afuse, they killed it. So it's asking the Edo State government to take its property back and regenerate the experience that will begin to influence or impact positively on the other things, as has happened with the Liberty Stadium and now Adama Simba Stadium, even if it's not as buoyant. But the point really is we have a peculiar ulcer that can be treated differently. If you may need to use injections, you may use whichever one takes it is. Let's deal with it.
Let's throw our arrow across the Niger to Abuja before we go on a short break. Thank you, Yunusa.
Correct the first impression Udon was making. What I'm saying is, when government builds stadiums all over the world, the immediate purpose was not to make money, and that is established. Now, Kule was talking about the experience in South Africa. Now, that is a different kettle of fish, because there was a planning around it even before the stadiums were built. Because before the South Africans went into the whole idea of even hosting the World Cup, they knew exactly what they wanted to do. Now, when the National Stadium in Abuja was built, let's even assume the National Stadium in Lagos and Ibadan and Enugu and Kaduna were built during the boom days, and then there was so much money to keep them running then. When Abuja was built, there was definitely no plan, because Abuja covers a wide expanse of land. The issue of having hotels, having movie theaters, having places where you could, in fact, a 10-star hotel could have been built, around the Abuja Stadium, which could have generated so much money. And when you people talk of concession, what is the difference between concession or government running it? There are two differences here. The difference is the fact that if you give government the opportunity to do it, the same people who run it, the same government officials who don't think in terms of profit. Now, a concessionaire comes in there And most likely, the whole idea is behind, is about money. Now, we might lose the essence of why is that place a sporting environment or a sporting facility. So we have to be very careful. There must be a deliberate effort by government to say, we really want to do a concession for our national assets, especially the national stadiums, and then get an expert, a technical expert, to do a proper brief so that all the issues involved in terms of we want the facility to remain a sporting arena to be maintained, so that the people who come in don't say, look, I have given government 1 billion, so I need to make my money back, and I don't want to, I'm not interested in what government wants as long as I make my money. So we have to be very careful how we do our concessioning, because over time we know most of these things have all these issue of man no man, whims and caprices of officials coming, and then at the end of the day we don't get value for money. So I think going further, I will go for concession, but I think the details must be worked out, and let everyone involved knows exactly what is involved in the concessioning.
Thank you very much. We are going on our last break for the day. When we come back, each one of us will now start to round off today's program.
When the kings of African comedy gather under one roof, there is only one outcome.
Then we bring down the roof.
Come witness the craziest and the funniest, the oh my God,
and the baddest of them all. Laughter will scatter your brain well.
Come watch the biggest names in African comedy at Glow Laughter Fest. Basket Mouth, Bovi, I Go Die, Sheyi Law, Gordons, Salvador, Osama, Bash, Kenny Black, and many more.
You will never have a bigger gathering of jaw-dropping, whip-cracking comedians under one roof.
One microphone, one net, all over Nigeria.
yeah, I'm gonna be there.
I am gonna be there. I'm going to be there.
Live and direct.
For the time of your life.
Will you?
To win a free ticket, use 2,000 Naira in a month and text LOL and your preferred location to 240.
Oh, Laughter Fest. Laugh go kill you, die.
Glow Unlimited.
Issues in the sports sector remain one of the most debated among Nigerians due to the passion, followership, government involvement, impact on Nigeria's external image and our national life in the sports parliament. The NTA offers Nigerians deep views on issues and experts in the sports sector, offering in-depth analysis, hindsight, insight and foresight towards elevating Nigerian sports to the zenith of the sports parliament.
The benefits that accrued in school sports, it is the bedrock of any nation.
A few Nigerians wanted the status quo to continue. So I don't think we should put all Nigerians and say Nigerians don't follow the trend, because the smart ones, we are following the trend.
The National Sports Lottery Fund, shrouded in secrecy.
The fact that the Super Eagles played an NTA, not only NTA, no Nigerian broadcaster, in fact no broadcaster anywhere in the world from our records was able to bring that much. It's a matter of concern.
Issa Hayatu was president for 29 years. He lost the election in Addis, and that's it. He's gone.
Sports Parliament, a unique platform for sports discussions, showing live on the NTA, Thursdays at 11 p.m. Keep a date with the parliamentarians.
The eyes have it.
Yes, welcome back. This is the Sports Parliament, coming to you from our studios in Lagos and Abuja, NTA studios. Well, let's now just zero in on the National Stadium, Surulere. There's a proposal from the Lagos State government on concessioning. What are your own thoughts on that specifically? The Lagos State, could be anything. Just your last thoughts on the National Stadium.
Concessioning is the way to go. But I would rather go for an open bid. I mean, let anybody interested. I mean, there's no reason to believe that Lagos State government alone has all the answers. And the matter is actually on the table of BPE. And I imagine that whatever is federal government property on BPE's table should come for open bidding.
Well, why is there this delay?
Well, you know, the previous government used to have standing committees to review what one committee has said. I mean, there were so many committees set up before it got to BPE, and we're still waiting for another committee. Maybe this government will make it quicker by just...
Well, I support the way of concession, but let it be open. Let people come up with what they want to do with the stadium, and then we go for the best.
As I left.
Well, I think there's a consensus on concession, but there must be, as Tanko says, there must be some caveats here that you must use it for sporting facility, for sporting events, at least majority. Also, we must also remember that the stadium is home to a lot of athletes that cannot have no other way to go and cannot afford to start paying. So we must find a way how these concessionaires can accommodate them. Now we should think about that too. So those are the two things that we should add in whoever is coming to take over the stadium.
So they should terminate the Lagos State one, or now throw it open to more?
No, they should throw it open to more, but they must put some caveats. They must put rules that the stadium must be used for sporting activities, majority of sporting activities, and there must be allowance for young athletes to use some of the facilities, because we don't have a lot of facilities around the country.
Well, I believe we are where we are now because government has not been decisive. There's been a lot of confusion about what government wants to do with our sports stadia. I think this is the time for government to do the needful. There's a consensus on concession. We should go that way, but with care. You know, with the caveat, like it's been said here. There are so many, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay? There are examples all over the world. So let us just pick the best that suits our purpose and go with it.
Tanko, Yunusa.
Sir, I think like everyone agreed that we have to go concession. But I think the document must be holistic in terms of let the document states that any stadium belonging to the federal government will fall within the same terms of reference, so that you don't have a separate terms of reference for Kaduna, for Lagos, for Ibadan, for Enugu. Let's have one term of reference so that no one says tomorrow, oh, it's because it's Lagos or it's because it's in Ibadan, that's why the terms are different. That way, we are dealing with one single property. I think we should go concession. I think we should.
On that note, I will call on the barrister amongst us to put all of this together for us into a motion so that we can now ask parliamentarians to make their votes.
Well, let me move a motion that the National Stadium, Sulere, and all other facilities that fall within that ambience be given to proper and competent managers by way of concession. That's my motion.
All those in support say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. The ayes have it. Well, we wish you a fantastic week ahead. Good night. Join us again next week.